picture the scenario. It's, a Friday afternoon, you're driving home from work, maybe feeling a little burned out, and you stop at a gas station.
Right, just a normal end to the week.
Exactly. And there, glowing in the window, is this massive billboard. The Powerball jackpot has just climbed to a staggering $707 million for the Saturday drawing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And suddenly, millions of people across the country, maybe even you listening right now, are doing the exact same mental exercise. What would you do with $707 million?
It's such a universally appealing daydream, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, would you march in and quit your job first thing Monday morning, buy a ridiculous house with like a moat and a drawbridge?
Travel the world forever.
Right. Pay off the mortgages for your entire extended family?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, maybe you'd just finally buy the really good guacamole at the grocery store without checking the price tag first.
That's the ultimate luxury right there.
Truly. But here is the central question for this deep dive. If we already know the objective odds of winning are astronomically bad, why does a giant headline jackpot still make handing over a few dollars for a ticket feel strangely reasonable?
A great question.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're digging into a really fascinating stack of economic research. It's basically this collision of bad math and big dreams.
Yeah, we have some incredible data to go through.
We're pulling from studies on the massive structural redesigns of U.S. lotteries like Powerball and Mega Millions plus behavioral analyses of the gigantic Spanish Christmas lottery, and even hard data on what actually happens to real-life lottery winners.
Because setting the stage here really requires looking at demand differently. Lottery demand isn't just driven by pure, unadulterated ignorance.
Right. People aren't just completely clueless.
No, not at all. People aren't simply walking up to a convenience store counter completely unaware that winning is difficult. Most people know it's a long shot. What we're actually looking at is a perfectly engineered collision between bad math and completely predictable quirks in human psychology.
So, if we have this internal glitch, we kind of need to understand what it looks like in practice before we can understand how lotteries exploit it. What is fundamentally happening in our physical brains when we see that $707 million billboard?
Well, logic basically leaves the chat.
Totally.
And to understand the mechanism behind that, we have to look at a behavioral economics concept called probability weighting. I mean, human brains are simply not naturally equipped to feel the difference between an event that is extremely unlikely and an event that is almost unimaginably unlikely.
Because our evolutionary hardware was built to process risks in small tribal groups, right?
Exactly. We understand odds like 1 in 10 or maybe, 1 in 100. We simply do not have the cognitive sensors to process odds of 1 in 292 million.
It's sort of like trying to physically feel the difference in weight between a single grain of sand and 2 grains of sand resting in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
Your hand just doesn't have the sensitivity for it. Your brain just registers tiny and completely gives up trying to measure the difference.
That is a perfect physical analogy for a cognitive blind spot, because the brain just lumps all those massive odds into a generic bucket labeled highly unlikely. The emotional size of the prize it completely overpowers the mathematics.
It just takes over.
It really does. And the research highlights something genuinely staggering about this. When economists look at how people make purchasing decisions, they find that a person's decision weight on the jackpot, meaning the actual influence that massive prize has on their choice to buy a ticket, is 230 times larger than the objective probability of actually winning it.
Wait, 230 times larger?
Yeah. People are reacting almost entirely to the size of the prize, while functionally ignoring the likelihood of getting it.
Which leads to some hilariously irrational human behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about how that plays out in your everyday life. You might aggressively refuse to pay an extra $2 delivery fee on a food app because it feels like a total ripoff.
Right, at a principle.
Yes. But then, an hour later, you'll happily turn around and hand that exact same $2 to a cashier to chase a $707 million jackpot with microscopic odds.
And what's fascinating here is that the data takes it even further. Ticket sales increase over 3 times as much when the expected value of the jackpot goes up by just $1, compared to if the ticket price were to drop by $1. Yeah. Traditional economic logic assumes we act rationally to maximize our financial utility, meaning a discount should drive sales.
Right. Everyone loves a sale.
But in this context, a $1 discount on a ticket barely moves the needle. Adding to the jackpot, however, creates an absolute frenzy.
I have to push back a little here, though. Is this entirely just an evolutionary glitch in processing scale? Or are people just, genuinely bad at math?
It's definitely a mix, and the behavioral reality is pretty striking. The survey data in our sources validates that cognitive biases play a massive role alongside that probability weighting.
Like what kind of biases?
Things like financial illiteracy, the gambler's fallacy, and a fundamental misunderstanding of the law of large numbers. Those statistically account for about 43% of lottery purchases.
Wait, let's break some of that down so we don't lose anyone. The gambler's fallacy, that's the idea that if a coin flips heads 5 times in a row, the brain assumes it's somehow due to hit tails on the next flip.
Exactly.
Which obviously applies to lotteries when people look at past drawings and think certain numbers are statistically due to hit, even though every drawing is a completely independent event.
Yes, and the law of large numbers is equally misunderstood. I mean, the law of large numbers states that over a massive, theoretically infinite number of draws, the results will perfectly mirror the true statistical odds.
But people don't think in infinite timelines.
Right. The problem is that people mistakenly apply this law to a tiny, finite sample size. They think, if I buy a ticket every week for 10 years, the law of averages says I have to win eventually. They assume the universe owes them a reversion to the mean within their own lifetime.
People get so seduced by these statistical misunderstandings, and they lean heavily on that classic phrase, well, someone has to win.
Oh, you hear it all the time.
Constantly. And technically, that is true. Someone does have to win. But statistically, that someone is overwhelmingly unlikely to be you or anyone you have ever met.
Which brings us to the most fascinating part of the research, honestly. The lottery commissions are deeply aware of these exact cognitive biases.
Oh, they know exactly what they're doing.
They do. They know we struggle to compute massive odds and that we fall back on the emotional weight of a huge prize.
So they weaponize the grain of sand.
In a manner of speaking, yeah. The research breaks down the data on how U.S. lotteries, specifically Powerball and Mega Millions, deliberately changed the structural mechanics of their games over the last decade to exploit this.
Okay.
They made two massive changes. First, they doubled the ticket price from $1 to $2.
Bold move.
Very.
Yeah.
But second, and this is the crucial part, they intentionally made the jackpot harder to win. Powerball, for example, worsened their odds from 1 in 175 million to 1 in 292 million.
Wait, I need to stop you right there. Here's where it gets really interesting, because in what other industry on earth does a company double the price of a product, explicitly worsen the quality or likelihood of the benefit, and then see a 57% to 94% increase in average sales per drawing?
It breaks every rule.
It breaks every fundamental rule of supply and demand. How does making a game demonstrably harder to win actually sell more tickets?
It sounds completely backward until you map out the mechanics of the feedback loop. Making the jackpot harder to win creates more drawings where there is no winner.
Okay, right.
And when there's no winner, the prize money rolls over to the next drawing. More rollovers create exponentially larger jackpots, eventually pushing up to those record-breaking $1.5 billion peaks we've seen in recent years.
So they are intentionally engineering a drought to create a flood.
Precisely, because those larger jackpots generate free marketing. They dominate the evening news, they spark conversations in the break room, and they just flood social media.
It becomes a cultural event.
Exactly. And all of that cultural noise eventually drives massive ticket sales from casual players who normally never participate.
It's the fear of missing out. FOMO. The office pool dynamic is the perfect example of this. You might know the math is terrible, but you throw in your $5 anyway because you're absolutely terrified of being the only person who has to show up to work on Monday while your entire accounting department is buying matching yachts.
It's so true. The lotteries willingly sacrifice the frequency of winners to manufacture a viral fantasy.
Wow.
Think about it. If you have a winner every single week for $20 million, it doesn't make the national news. It doesn't trigger that probability weighting glitch in our brains in the same way, because 20 million feels somehow comprehensible.
It's a lot, but it's not a billion.
Right. But if nobody wins for 3 months and the pot hits $1 billion, suddenly the entire country is engaging in that mental exercise you mentioned at the start.
So they manufacture this massive hype on a national level by worsening the odds. But what happens when that impossible dream lands right next door to you? Because a winner in another time zone is an abstract concept.
Right.
But a winner in your own zip code feels entirely different.
This raises an important question,
Yeah.
and it's where the research looks at the Spanish Christmas lottery, known as El Gordo, or the fat one.
The fat one, I love that.
The economic data on this is just incredible. El Gordo is a massive state lottery and a total cultural phenomenon in Spain, with roughly 75% of the entire population participating.
Wait, 75%. That's not a lottery anymore. That is a national holiday.
It essentially functions as one. And what makes it unique is how the tickets are distributed. Because tickets are sold in local outlets, and people culturally buy them in syndicates, with neighbors, coworkers, and family members. Entire provinces often share in a jackpot. Yeah, a whole town might win together.
Imagine being the one guy in that town who decided to skip buying a ticket that year.
Oh, that would be devastating.
But seriously, what happens to the people in that winning town or the neighboring towns when the next drawing rolls around? You'd think they would assume lightning won't strike twice.
You would think so, logically. But the data shows the exact opposite. This is known as the compatriot win effect.
Okay.
When a region produces a major winner, lottery sales in that specific province spike significantly for subsequent draws. There's another draw just 15 days later called El Niño, and then the next year is El Gordo. Sales in the winning region jump, and this positive effect on sales actually lingers in that specific area for up to 5 years.
5 years of increased sales just because your town got lucky once?
Yep.
I mean, the objective mathematical odds of the game haven't changed by a single fraction of a percent just because someone in your neighborhood won. So why is everyone suddenly buying more tickets?
Economists attribute this localized frenzy to availability bias and salience.
Let's define those in practical terms. Availability bias means we judge how likely something is by how easily we can call an example of it to mind, right?
Exactly that. If a lottery winner is in a different state across the country, it feels abstract. It's just a headline on a screen.
Right.
But a winner from your city or the convenience store you buy coffee from every morning, that suddenly makes the impossible feel very real.
Right.
The event is highly salient, meaning it's visible, it's tangible. You might literally see the winner's new car parked at the grocery store.
It's not just like, oh, the math fairies have set up shop on Elm Street. It's that our brains use physical proximity as a proxy for probability.
Yes.
We see a winner's new truck, so our brain subconsciously says, oh, this event is common here, completely ignoring the statistical independence of the next drawing.
Exactly.
I mean, the lottery terminal that printed the winning ticket last week isn't somehow magically warmer and more likely to print a winning ticket this week. Yet you will see lines of people wrapping around the block, specifically at the store that just sold a winning ticket. The proximity acts as a credible signal to the brain that winning is feasible. It's an incredibly powerful psychological trigger that completely bypasses our logical understanding of independent variables.
So the national hype creates the dream, and the local proximity creates this powerful illusion that, we could be next.
Right.
But let's play this out. We know the math is bad, and we know our brains are easily tricked. But someone, eventually, does beat the one in 292 million odds. Suppose the impossible actually happens to you. You win. What does sudden wealth actually do to people? Because culturally, we have a very specific, almost moralistic narrative about this.
Oh, the cursed winner myth.
Yes. You know the stories.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who wins $50 million and 5 years later he's bankrupt, divorced, estranged from his kids, living in a van, and generally miserable. We love to tell these stories. It feels like a societal coping mechanism.
It really does. Like, oh, it's actually a good thing I didn't win that $1 billion. It would have ruined my life anyway.
It is a deeply comforting narrative for those of us who don't win. But the economic data on actual wealth shocks tells a very different, much more grounded story.
Really?
Yeah. When researchers look at the long-term outcomes for real documented lottery winners, the evidence overwhelmingly refutes the cursed winner myth. Sudden wealth, on average, actually improves financial satisfaction and overall life satisfaction.
So you're saying money actually does buy happiness?
Well, it certainly buys financial stability, a massive reduction in daily stress, and the freedom to make different life choices. The specific source details show that winners tend to, unsurprisingly, work less and consume more.
Makes sense.
They buy cars, they buy furniture, they update their appliances, they upgrade their baseline lifestyles.
What about the urge to just disappear?
Sure.
Because, I mean, if I win $707 million, I am definitely moving. Probably to somewhere with a lot of palm trees where literally nobody knows my phone number.
The data on housing and moving is actually fascinating and much less dramatic than you'd think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. An extra $100,000 in wealth increases a person's propensity to move by only about 2 percentage points.
That's tiny.
Right. Interestingly, though, lower-income households are 5 times more likely to move than highest quartile winners.
Which makes total logical sense.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're already living in a beautiful house in a great neighborhood, 100 grand doesn't fundamentally alter your housing needs.
Exactly.
But if you're struggling to pay rent in a bad area, that is your immediate ticket out.
But consider this. They rarely pack up and buy a private island. The data shows they usually just move to a slightly better neighborhood in the exact same county or state.
Really, they stay local.
Yeah, they move across town to a house with an extra bedroom, a nicer yard, and a better school district for their kids. The changes are profoundly impactful for their quality of life, but they're incredibly grounded compared to the wild fantasies we entertain.
To keep a balanced view here, though, it's not all sunshine and endless guacamole. Money doesn't magically fix human nature.
It absolutely does not. Money solves money problems. It does not magically solve emotional trauma, personality flaws, or deep relationship problems.
Right.
The research shows that marital status trends, for instance, don't dramatically shift after a win. If a marriage was fundamentally failing before the lottery win, the money doesn't magically save it.
Yeah, it probably just accelerates whatever was already going to happen.
Exactly. If you were profoundly unhappy with yourself, you might just become a wealthy, unhappy person. But the sweeping idea that winning the lottery inherently destroys a normal person's life is largely a myth.
Now, as we impartially report on all this data, we do have to carefully distinguish something important. We're talking primarily about paying a few dollars every couple of months to enjoy a daydream. We definitely need to acknowledge that genuinely misunderstanding these odds to a detrimental degree is a real issue. The sources make it clear that excessive gambling can cause serious financial and public health harm to individuals and families.
That is a critical distinction to maintain. Furthermore, the economic research points out that lottery spending is highly regressive.
Meaning it impacts lower income groups more.
Exactly. The data shows that lower-income households spend 29% more on lotteries than higher-income households. Because state lotteries retain such a massive portion of the ticket sales to fund public programs, rather than paying it all out in prizes, this acts effectively as a 57% to 61% implicit tax on the people who are buying the most tickets.
Right, so you have states raising revenue for public services without explicitly passing new income taxes.
Correct.
But a disproportionate amount of that state revenue is coming from lower-income individuals who are, frankly, disproportionately influenced by the exact behavioral biases and probability weighting glitches we've been talking about.
It's a very delicate intersection of consumer freedom, entertainment value, and state policy.
So what does this all mean? When you walk into a gas station, bypass the snacks, and hand over a $2 bill for a tiny piece of thermal paper with some random numbers printed on it, what are you actually buying?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, lotteries are absolutely not selling a realistic financial investment. No financial advisor is going to look at a Powerball ticket as a viable retirement strategy.
Right, definitely not.
What they're actually selling is a very specific type of entertainment. Economists refer to it as anticipatory utility.
Anticipatory utility, the joy of the wait.
Yes. You buy the ticket on a Thursday afternoon, and the drawing isn't until Saturday night. For those 48 hours, you get to legitimately dream.
You're paying for the daydream.
Exactly. You get to have animated conversations over dinner with your spouse about which ridiculous cars you'd buy or exactly how you would tell your boss you're leaving. You get utility, actual psychological enjoyment out of anticipating a life-changing event, even if it never happens.
It's like buying a movie ticket, but the movie plays exclusively in your own head, starring you.
That's a great way to put it.
And for a few dollars, millions of people find that to be a genuinely worthwhile purchase, regardless of what the objective math says.
It provides a brief escape. And understanding that kind of changes how we view the entire industry.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over the next time you see one of those massive jackpot billboards.
Let's hear it.
If this psychological glitch, our inability to process huge odds, combined with the thrill of a massive prize, is so universally powerful, could we actually use it for something beneficial?
That is an excellent question.
There's this growing economic concept called prize-linked savings accounts. Imagine if, instead of buying a lottery ticket where your $2 disappears forever, you deposit that money into a special savings account at a bank.
Okay, tracking.
You keep all your money, it builds interest, but every $25 you save gets you a ticket entered into a massive monthly lottery drawing funded by the bank's aggregate interest.
Oh, wow. It basically gamifies financial responsibility.
Exactly. It uses our irrational love of jackpots to trick us into building an emergency fund. It proves that the desire to ask, what if, doesn't have to be a financial drain, because perhaps Powerball and Mega Millions and El Gordo are not really selling probability at all.
Wow.
They aren't selling a statistical likelihood of wealth. For a few dollars, they sell temporary access to an alternate life.
The math may be bad.
But the dream is extraordinarily well designed.